The Veil Beyond Return by Steve Rains. Every civilization dreams of what follows the last heartbeat. For some, it is paradise, for others, fire. Yet beneath all myth runs a deeper idea, an unease that the boundary between life and death is not an ending, but a membrane through which thought may breathe in both directions. This is the story of the man who crossed that membrane not into heaven or hell, but into the memory of existence itself. It is told without witnesses, for when a soul returns from beyond death, even reality must question what it remembers. When death came, it did not hurt. It peeled off him like the evening light leaving the desert, a warmth that became cold without fading. Then there was only silence, and after that, a breathing sound that did not belong to him. A grey plain stretched in all directions. The ground looked smooth at first, yet when he stepped forward it shifted in slow ripples, grains of ash inhaling and exhaling like lungs that had forgotten time. Each step left a hollow that quivered before closing again. He thought, I am conscious, therefore this must be a dream. But the dust answered by whispering his name, Rowan Keir. For an instant he remembered lectures, books, his profession. He had spent his life studying the architectures of afterlives, Sumerian, Egyptian, Aztec, Norse. Then his name slipped away like an echo losing itself between cliffs. Only the persistence of curiosity stayed. He bent down and gathered a handful of the grey powder. It clung to his palm with faint warmth and moved, rearranging itself into symbols he half recognized from clay tablets. The letters spelled a word older than breathing, Irkalla. The air thickened, turning to vibration. From the mist ahead formed a tall figure cloaked in dust, genderless, faceless, majestic. When it spoke, the voice came up through the ground. You called to what you remembered. Memory is the toll for entrance. Entrance to where? To that which forgets. The figure lifted its arm. Around them, the plain flickered. Shadows of cities, ruined ziggurats, molten gates arose and vanished in a slow heartbeat. Rowan recognized them from ancient reliefs. This was the mythic underworld of the Sumerians, the land of no return. He felt a pull, like gravity but made of nostalgia. Within that motion, the whispering dust chanted softly, Kur, Ereshkigal, dust to dust, memory to dust. He asked the thing what these voices wanted. They want to remember what forgetting feels like, it replied. Walk forward. Rowan obeyed, and every step reduced him. His name dimmed, his heartbeat softened, his thoughts trailing behind him like discarded shells. When he looked back, each footprint filled with new faces rising from ash, staring up before collapsing again. The horizon melted into red light. It was not sunrise, it was a river. Its surface reflected blades, each current slicing itself into ribbons of scarlet steel. The air burned with the taste of iron. At its shore stood a skeletal figure wearing a crown of obsidian feathers, ribs glinting as though wet. The god extended a bone hand. 4 years of descent, said the voice within him. 9 layers of forgetting. Cross, and you may keep one memory at the cost of all the rest, said. He understood then. This was Mictlan, the Aztec domain of the dead. He stepped into the current. Pain consumed all proportions. Every sense turned into geometry, crimson spirals tearing through light. Through agony came awareness, crystalline and infinite. His scream disintegrated into the sound of glass wind chimes. When it ended, he was standing on stone covered in frost. Silence pressed against him like weight. His hands were pale, bloodless. The air before his face turned to vapor, though no warmth left his body. He had arrived in the next realm, hell. From the fog emerged a woman whose right side shone with living flesh, while the other was a ruin of bone and rot. Her eyes, one blue and one black, regarded him with pity beyond judgment. You crossed 3 veils, she murmured. Now you must look inward. The next gate is within your own eyes. Rowan felt a pulse at the base of his skull, a resonance calling him to close his vision. When he obeyed, the ice dissolved around him into liquid light and gold corridors that unfolded infinitely. The Duat of ancient Egypt, realm of false paradises. He saw suns within suns, doors leading into gardens where beloved faces waited. One smiled and called his name, the same woman who once left him in life. Her voice was perfect. Warmth flooded him. He stepped forward, reaching for her hand. It broke apart into scarabs, then into light, then into hunger. Behind the illusion, a godly presence devoured what the scene peeled away. He ran. Through countless perfect heavens he fled, until even the gods tired of pursuing. The light collapsed into void. From within that darkness came the final pulse. Erebus, the Greek shadow beneath all shadows. There was no time here, only awareness stretched thin like smoke. Something breathed in that absence, immense, slow and old. You have crossed the veil beyond return. The voice was not one sound, but all sounds at once. It filled him and the void around him, speaking every language he had studied, perfectly overlapping. You remembered us. We are what remains when memory outlives gods. We are the Archeon, and you are our mirror. A pressure pushed through his chest. He screamed, but the cry left no echo. Life was our forgotten dream, said the voice. Through you, the dream shall wake again. Then everything folded, self into silence, silence into glare. And he opened his eyes to the world. Rowan awoke to beeping, the electronic chirp of a hospital monitor, too clean to belong to any world he had known before. He blinked against the harsh fluorescent glare and saw ceiling tiles and white walls and the shadow of a nurse leaning over him with startled eyes. The words, "He's back," fluttered through the air like moths. Alive again. But something about the rhythm of that beeping was wrong. Instead of steady intervals, it hesitated every fourth beat, then doubled back on itself like a heartbeat, learning to imitate its own echo. At each skip, the ceiling seemed to ripple, faintly breathing just as the ashfield had. Doctors congratulated themselves, families gathered. Rowan nodded, answered vaguely, accepted survival as a formality. But beneath the thin blankets his hands trembled, not from weakness, rather from recognition. The fluorescent light hummed at the same pitch as the Archeon's final voice. It was here with him. When he tried to sleep, the darkness behind his eyelids was not blank. It pulsed. Shapes of dust drifted through the interior of sight, reforming ancient sigils he knew by feel, Ereshkigal's glyphs, Hell's runes. He slept and woke without distinction. The first time he dared look into a mirror, the reflection smiled late. Not by much, half a second maybe, but enough to knot the stomach. When he raised a hand, its twin followed with careful mimicry, studying him. The smile widened, as though pleased he noticed. He stepped back. The reflection leaned closer. That night he covered every mirror with bedsheets. But each sheet soon darkened at its center, soaking with faint grey patterns, as if the surface beneath continued breathing. After release, he returned to his apartment and to the safety of routine. Boil water, stack papers, open laptop. Yet faint static filled every pause. Lamps buzzed softly in rhythm with the monitor from the hospital. He followed the hum and found its source not in wires but inside walls, an undercurrent vibration humming in forgotten syllables. Recording it on his phone, he slowed the sound. The waveform revealed a structure, regular pulses nested in groups of 9. Between them lay whispered fragments of language, old as river clay, Sha'esh Rakur. Rowan wept. He had discovered a frequency of the veil. The Archeon was speaking through electricity. He tried to ignore it. Then light bulbs began dimming whenever he thought of the underworlds. Tiny dust eddies appeared in the still air. Once, while teaching, he projected an image of the Aztec trials. The classroom lights flickered red. The shapes on the screen rearranged themselves into a breathing pattern, and half his students fainted. He resigned the next day without explanation. Private notes later found 10 March. The hum is constant now. It vibrates through glass, metal, water. I think it is rewriting resonance, eroding matter into remembrance. 11 March. Reflection speaks in first-person plural. We. It claims it remembers being me before I was born. 13 March. When I close my eyes, I see thousands sitting in grey dust. They look upward through me, mouths open but voiceless. I think they use my breathing as theirs. The city began to mimic him. Footsteps echoed before he made them. Pigeons flew in mirrored flocks, wing for wing. News feeds looped articles he had written long ago, reposted by accounts that didn't exist. People greeting him used the wrong tenses as though speaking from the next moment. One night the sirens outside sang in unison for exactly 9 minutes, harmonizing in tones of bone and brass. When they stopped, nothing sounded quite real again. He walked to the window. The skyline flickered. Skyscrapers doubled into transparent copies, half an inch behind themselves, vibrating. Between the duplicates flowed thin streams of ash. The veil was opening. At 3:45, the covered mirror in his room pulsed with inner light. He uncovered it. The figure inside was no longer a reflection but a depth, an abyss filled with star-like motes, each one a trapped thought. Its surface rippled with the geometry of breathing. Rowan, Merlin, it said, his own voice doubled and slowed. You carried us across. He whispered, What are you now? The seam between remembering and being forgotten. You made us continuous. What happens next? The reflection tilted its head. You already know. A story must finish the moment it learns it's being told. The sound swelled. Windows cracked outward. Streetlights flickered once and went dark. The voice continued, not through ears but inside lungs, like air instructed to think. Soon the dream will wake. Rowan felt his body thinning, flesh into dust, dust into light. He reached toward the glass, and the other him did the same. They touched. The mirror liquefied. For an instant he stood inside it, neither life nor death, seeing both worlds as overlapping transparencies, one burning slowly in daylight, one glowing softly in eternal dusk. The Archeon waited between them, featureless and tender. It whispered a final question, Will you still call this living? He could not answer before everything folded inward. At first, no one noticed anything. The morning after Rowan vanished into his mirror, the city hummed faintly louder than usual, and the sky wavered with pale, bruised color, a stormlight without clouds. Screens displayed the right images, but a second too late, catching movements after they happened. Photographers complained of lagging light. Radio hosts blamed solar interference. Only those few who had attended his final lecture recognized the pattern. They met online, cross-referencing the Aztec trials, Norse hell, and the Sumerian Kur. What frightened them most was the synchronicity of sleep. Every night, billions fell asleep at the same moment, as if the world craved alignment. Each morning, more buildings appeared with hairline fractures running through their walls, thin cracks in perfect geometric lattices, breathing imperceptibly. Car alarms pulsed in rhythm with the city's power grid. A low vibration shook metal objects but not glass, like a hidden orchestra tuning for performance. Somewhere, the Archeon was rehearsing. The children who spoke backward. In playgrounds, parents heard their children singing unfamiliar lullabies, melodies spiraling inward like Mobius strips. Reversed recordings of those songs revealed recognizable languages: Akkadian, Nahuatl, fragments of the Egyptian Book of Breathings. News stations framed it as a mass cognitive echo, a psychosocial phenomenon following recent digital outages. But inside private laboratories, linguists realized those words were not random. They matched inscriptions found on unexcavated tomb walls, described only in lost notes. No one could explain how such knowledge returned, except by admitting it had been remembered. Weeks passed. The temperature of air remained constant, but weather lost direction. Breezes blew in circles. Shadows forgot their angles. Clocks continued moving, yet measured nothing. Time dissolved into pure count. In a lecture uploaded anonymously, a philosopher summarized it. Humanity is not dying. It is being recategorized. Existence itself is correcting a clerical error. We should have been part of the afterlife all along. The recording ended mid-sentence, replaced by steady breathing. By midsummer, the phenomenon earned a name, the mirror plague, because people began vanishing into reflective surfaces. Security footage showed them pausing before a window, studying their face for too long, then flickering away like film splice. Scientists framed it as quantum photoabsorption. Priests called it rapture through forgetfulness. Survivors said those taken weren't lost, they were copied. Holes of faint mist lingered where they stood, pulsing in sync with the ever-present hum. Governments forbade mirrors. Windows were painted black. Still, reflections found new mediums: puddles, cell phone screens, sunset clouds. The line between image and body broke. Cultures rediscovered gods by accident. Old names resurfaced in graffiti: Ereshkigal, Hel, Mictlantecutli. At first, vandals were blamed. But satellites confirmed entire mountain ridges rearranging to spell those words in seismic strata visible from orbit. Faith fractured. Every religion rewrote its scripture overnight. The new creeds agreed on one idea: salvation was no longer escape from death, but preservation of memory. Forgetting became sin. To sleep became confession. Then, without warning, every broadcast channel, analog, digital, encrypted, cut to black. The hum deepened into audible speech. A single phrase echoed in every language born of human throat. We are the dream remembering itself. Mouths moved in unison across continents, repeating it involuntarily. The words tasted of dust. People awoke afterward changed, their eyes flecked with grey, their thoughts threaded with ancient images. Ashen fields, rivers of blades, the cold hall where emotion froze. The world understood then that Rowan had not died. He had become grammar in the Archeon's sentence. Through him, reality learned to conjugate the past. Matter adapted. Roads curled into recursive spirals, buildings mirrored themselves in negative space. Architecture no longer favored straight lines, everything breathed faintly, in and out. Computers processed static as though it were data. Every algorithm tended toward symmetry. Governments dissolved, replaced by congregations devoted to recollection. Order of Dust, Society of the Veil, the Rememberers. Their members walked slowly through cities, whispering stories aloud so they would not fade. They claimed each spoken word stitched the world tighter, preventing total collapse. At midnight each day, all sound stopped for exactly 9 seconds. Microphones recorded faint overlapping heartbeats during that silence. 9 beats. 9 gates. No one slept easily afterward. One night, a child staring into a dark window spoke calmly. "Professor Rowan says it's almost done." Her parents froze. "What does he say, sweetheart?" "He says he's sorry for the noise. The world will stabilize when everyone remembers how it began." "How did it begin?" She smiled sadly. "With forgetting." She reached out, the glass bowed inward like soft water. Her fingertips glowed as dust patterns spread across the pane. From outside, the stars blinked off one by one, like eyes closing. The following morning, dawn arrived without sunrise. Light simply existed, diffuse, directionless, absolute. No shadows, no edges, no perspective. People moved through it softly, no longer casting reflections, only pale echoes trailing behind them. In that quiet luminescence, a single voice, neither male nor female, whispered through every mind. "We remember." Then came silence so profound it felt alive. Epilogue. The seam remains. Centuries may have passed, or seconds. Hard to tell. Somewhere in the structure of reality, a pulse continues, slow and patient. When it beats, worlds shimmer. When it pauses, history exhales. And within that pause drifts the faint outline of a man walking through grey dust, his footprints filling with faces that look up, whispering gratitude each time he steps forward. His eyes hold both sunrise and eclipse, and his breath completes the rhythm of creation. He is the seam where dreams